Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something that routinely trips up even the most advanced learners of Portuguese. We are talking about a true phonetic chameleon, the letter R. Normally we expect a reliable one-to-one mapping between a written symbol and a spoken sound, right? Well, in Portuguese, the letter R represents this incredibly fluid spectrum of phonemes. If you're into Romance linguistics, it becomes super obvious right away that this single consonant totally defies standard phonetic categorization. So we're going to unpack exactly how and why this letter operates less like a static building block of the alphabet and way more like a dynamic puzzle. It literally shifts its identity based on a really complex set of internal and external rules. So, did you actually know that? It's the foundational premise of our source material today, and it revolves around this wild linguistic phenomenon, the massive auditory variation of just this one single letter. Think about it. In a lot of languages, a consonant like R has a fixed articulation. Maybe it's an alveolar trill, maybe it's a labiodental approximant, but it pretty much stays that way no matter where you put it. Portuguese, though? No way. It subverts that expectation completely. It takes this grapheme that looks deceptively simple on the page and forces it to map onto multiple completely distinct articulations, depending on its morphological environment and historical shifts. We're essentially looking at how one widely recognized symbol triggers completely different mechanical responses in the human vocal tract. It's fascinating. Now, this shape-shifting behavior isn't just random. It's actually governed by some pretty strict internal phonological rules. The phonetic value of the R transforms completely based on where it's hanging out within a word or a syllable. For instance, the way the consonant behaves at the very beginning of a word is totally different from how it sounds in an intervocalic position, when it's sandwiched right between two vowels. And the morphology changes again when the letter is doubled. A single R plays by one set of rules, but the second you introduce a double RR, the phonetic output shifts into a completely different category of sound. It demands absolute situational awareness from the speaker. You've got to recognize the environment and apply the correct sound on the fly. To really grasp the sheer scale of this variation, we have to look at the actual phonetic categories involved here. And we aren't just talking about slight, barely noticeable tweaks. The sounds produced by this one single letter range from an alveolar tap, which is that quick flap of the tongue against the roof of the mouth that you commonly find in Spanish, all the way to a voiceless velar fricative, or even a glottal fricative. Those are the breathy guttural sounds produced way down deep in the throat. So, to put that into perspective, the physical articulation required by this one letter violently swings from the very front of your mouth, right behind your teeth, literally all the way to the back of your vocal tract. Our source gives a really concrete illustration of this extreme contrast. Let's take a word initial R, like in the famous city name Rio. What happens? Well, the vocal cords produce this breathy, guttural H sound. Technically, it's a voiceless uvular or glottal fricative, depending on the speaker's exact articulation. But if you take that exact same letter and place it between two vowels, like in the word caro, which means expensive, the tongue taps the hard palate. This creates a rapid flap that English speakers often hear as a soft D sound. So we go from a deep, throat-clearing H to a light, frontal D. That is an absolutely incredible phonetic leap for just one written character to dictate. Okay, so you memorize the word structure and the syllable morphology. You're good, right? Well, actually, scratch that, because there's a wild card factor that completely overrides these standard phonetic baselines. Even if a learner perfectly memorizes the grammatical environments for the alveolar tap or the glottal fricative, the physical realization of those sounds mutates entirely once you factor in geography. That's right, sociolinguistics and regional identity play a massive role in how this grapheme is expressed out loud. The internal rules of the word dictate part of the equation for sure, but the physical location of the speaker throws an entirely new layer of complexity into the whole shebang. This geographical variation is honestly wild across the country. Let's look at the Caipira dialect, found in the interior of Sao Paulo and the neighboring agricultural states. In this region, a syllable final R is often pronounced as an alveolar approximant. It's a retroflex R that sounds remarkably similar to a standard American English R. But conversely, if you travel over to the coast and listen to the Carioca accent from Rio de Janeiro, that exact same syllable final R is rendered as a heavy, guttural scratch at the back of the throat. It sounds way closer to a Parisian French R. So, depending on where you are, the consonant literally acts as a linguistic map of Brazil. Navigating this complex web of phonetic environments and regional dialects is pretty much the ultimate hurdle for achieving true language fluency. Conquering these phonetic shifts isn't just some dry, academic exercise in linguistics. It is exactly what separates someone who merely reads Portuguese from someone who authentically speaks it. Understanding these intricate layers is the absolute key to localizing your accent. Whether you're aiming to replicate those coastal, guttural sounds of Rio or the distinct metropolitan cadence of São Paulo, mastering the specific variations of this consonant is an absolute necessity if you want to blend in. The source material we're looking at outlines a highly specific methodology for actually internalizing these complex rules. It heavily emphasizes the importance of moving beyond theoretical phonetics and textbook memorization. You have to get into active, localized speech patterns. To make that jump from abstract theory to tangible practice, the authors strongly recommend hands-on conversational immersion. Their suggested practical application? Booking a free trial lesson designed specifically to map these phonetic concepts onto real, spontaneous conversation. This approach is a total game changer because it allows you to get immediate, targeted feedback on your articulation and consciously navigate your chosen regional dialect with an actual expert. So, at the end of the day, the Portuguese R is so much more than just an orthographic symbol. It's a complex map of Brazil's linguistic history and a true test of your phonetic agility. Embracing the shape-shifting nature of this consonant allows you to unlock a completely new level of authenticity and precision in your spoken language. It really challenges our basic assumptions about how alphabets work, and it reveals these deep, fascinating connections between spelling, vocal mechanics, and regional culture. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to walk away with. Does your own native language harbor any hidden phonetic chameleons quite like this one? Think about it. Thanks for exploring this phonetic mystery with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.